My friends, the Philadelphia Eagles didn't just win on Sunday, they made a statement. Under the lights of Lincoln Financial Field, dressed in those iconic Kelly greens, the Birds dismantled the New York Giants in what can only be described as their most complete performance of the year. It wasn't just a win, it was domination in every phase of the game. Offense, defense, special teams, everything clicked, and for the first time all season, the Eagles looked like the juggernaut fans have been waiting to see. So smash that like button to show some love, and if you can, drop a "Go Birds, I believe" down in the comments. It started fast. On the second play from scrimmage, Saquon Barkley, yes, against his former team, exploded for a 65-yard touchdown, leaving the Giants' defense frozen in disbelief. It was the tone setter, the moment that told every fan at the Link, we're back. Barkley's day didn't stop there. He finished with 150 yards on just 14 carries, averaging an absurd 10.7 yards per run, and added 2 total touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving. This was Barkley's best performance of the season, and it came when the Eagles needed it most, silencing anyone who questioned his fit in this offense. And it wasn't just Barkley. Rookie Tank Bigsby, the same player who many criticized Howie Roseman for trading for, came alive. After barely touching the ball this year, Bigsby exploded for 104 yards on 9 carries, showing power, balance, and the kind of physicality Philadelphia fans love. For the first time in 12 years, the Eagles had 2 running backs eclipse 100 yards in the same game. This was old-school Eagles football, run-heavy, smash-mouth, relentless. The team racked up 276 rushing yards on 33 attempts, an 8.4 yards per carry average, completely overwhelming New York's front. The success wasn't accidental. Credit goes to offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo and the coaching staff for making key adjustments over the past 2 weeks, putting Jalen Hurts under center more often and using Fred Johnson as a 6th offensive lineman in heavy sets has completely changed the rhythm of the offense. When Johnson was on the field Sunday, the Eagles ran the ball 12 times for 129 yards, over 10 yards per carry. It's the kind of creative, aggressive football that defines the best versions of this team. They've rediscovered their identity, and it starts in the trenches. Speaking of Hurts, he was brilliant, calm, efficient, and commanding. Hurts went 15 of 20 for 179 yards and 4 touchdowns with no turnovers. He's been nearly flawless the past 2 weeks, throwing for 505 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. He's reading defenses, finding open receivers, and proving once again that he belongs in the MVP conversation. 20 total touchdowns to just 2 turnovers this season. 70% completion rate. A quarterback rating north of 140 against one of the NFL's top defensive fronts. Anyone still saying Hurts can't throw has officially run out of arguments. And the best part? Hurts did it without A.J. Brown and without right guard Cam Jurgens. No excuses, no hesitation, just execution. He spread the ball around, moved the chains, and led scoring drives with precision. For all the talk of offensive chemistry issues, this game showed that Philadelphia can thrive even when one of their superstars is sidelined or frustrated. But what really set this game apart was the defense. The Eagles' front 7 absolutely bullied the Giants' offensive line. After struggling to pressure Jackson Dart in the first meeting, they flipped the script entirely. The defensive line, led by Jalen Carter's dominance inside and Nicholas Morrow's relentless motor, turned the pocket into chaos. Morrow now leads the team with 4 sacks, and rookie edge rusher Jix Hunt, who's been steadily improving, had the best game of his young career with 9 pressures and a sack. Hunt, once a third-round pick many questioned, is finally showing why the front office believed in him. He's fast, versatile, and disruptive, using that hybrid safety linebacker background to read plays and make impact stops. Even Vic Fangio's defense, criticized earlier in the season for being too soft, looked transformed. The Giants were held to just 246 total yards and a mere 3.2 yards per carry. Dart, who had lit them up earlier in the season, was held to under 180 passing yards. The Eagles played physical, fast, and focused, feeding off the crowd's energy at the Link. You could feel it in the air. This team was done feeling things out. They were imposing their will again. Now, this win doesn't just pad the standings. It changes the tone heading into the bye week. The Eagles go into their break with momentum, confidence, and a clear sense of who they are. They've rediscovered balance. They've rediscovered toughness. And with reinforcements on the way, Nolan Smith, Brandon Graham, and Jorian Bennett all expected to return, this defense is about to get even deeper and more dangerous. Coming out of the bye, the Eagles faced the Green Bay Packers in a matchup that could determine the NFC's #1 seed. And based on how this team just played, it feels like they're starting to peak at exactly the right time, just like every great Eagles run under Nick Sirianni. You can sense it. They're turning into the team nobody wants to face down the stretch. But here's the real question that's stirring conversation all across the city today. After a win this dominant, after proving they can thrive without A.J. Brown, after finding new life in the run game and seeing the defense finally come together, do you think the Eagles have officially found their true identity for this season? Because if this is the version of the Philadelphia Eagles we're going to see from here on out, then the NFC needs to start paying attention. This looked like the kind of team that can make another deep playoff run, a group that's rediscovered its rhythm, its chemistry, and its swagger. And maybe the most encouraging part of all is how they're doing it, not through flash or luck, but through the kind of physical, disciplined football that wins in December and January. You can see it in Jalen Hurts' command of the huddle. You can see it in the offensive line's confidence, in the way Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson were mauling defenders at the point of attack. You can see it in the defensive front's relentlessness, Jalen Carter collapsing the pocket, Jix Hunt exploding off the edge, and veterans like Fletcher Cox still finding ways to impact plays even with fewer snaps. There's a new kind of balance here, a trust between the young talent and the veteran leadership. It feels like the pieces are clicking into place. And as they head into the bye week, there's also something to be said about the energy in that locker room. The guys know what this win meant. They avenged one of their ugliest losses of the year, that Week 6 defeat to the Giants, and they did it by flipping the script completely. Back then, they looked flat and uncertain. This time, they looked ruthless. They were faster, smarter, sharper. Saquon Barkley admitted after the game that the Eagles had taken that earlier loss personally. He said they remembered how New York celebrated, how loud they were after that Thursday night game. You could tell this one mattered. For Barkley, it was redemption. For the team, it was restoration. And let's talk about coaching adjustments for a second, because they've been massive. Kevin Patullo deserves a ton of credit for finding creative ways to maximize this offense's strengths. He's blended the physical run game with modern passing concepts that keep defenses guessing. Using heavy formations and pre-snap motion, he's given Hurts simpler reads and more defined play-action looks. When you combine that with Hurts' improved pocket awareness and decision-making, you get an offense that feels smooth, efficient, and unpredictable again. It's what we've been waiting to see all season. On the other side, Vic Fangio's defense looks like it's finally embracing his philosophy. Instead of sitting back and letting offenses dictate tempo, they're mixing coverages, sending disguised pressure, and forcing quarterbacks to make quick, bad decisions. Fangio's scheme takes time to settle in. We've seen that before, but now that players are understanding their assignments, it's starting to hum. And with Nolan Smith and Brandon Graham set to return, the pass rush is about to get a whole lot deeper. Imagine a rotation featuring Carter, Cox, Smith, Graham, Morrow, Hunt, and Sweat. That's a problem for any offensive line in football. Even the secondary deserves its flowers. Keely Ringo stepped up in a big way with Adoree Jackson still sidelined, and Jorian Bennett continues to flash. The young corners are gaining confidence, and it's showing in tighter coverage and better communication. You can tell the staff believes in them. They're not afraid to leave them one-on-one when the front is heating up the pocket. But here's where things get interesting. The trade deadline looms just days away, and Howie Roseman now faces a classic Philadelphia question. Does he strike, or does he stand pat? Normally, Howie's phone would be buzzing nonstop this time of year. But the truth is, this roster looks balanced right now. With Jix Hunt emerging, the run game surging, and the defense finding its identity, there might not be a pressing need to give up draft capital. Still, we know Howie. When there's an opportunity to make the team better, he rarely sits still. The question is, what kind of move would even make sense at this point? Pass rusher? Depth corner? Maybe another rotational lineman? Or does he trust the chemistry that's building inside this locker room and let the momentum carry? Meanwhile, the elephant in the room remains the A.J. Brown situation. His frustration has been visible, and his social media behavior, deleting old posts about Hurts, hasn't gone unnoticed. Yet Sunday's performance showed something important. This offense can still dominate without him. That doesn't mean the Eagles are better off without their all-pro receiver, far from it, but it does mean they're not dependent on him. They prove they can adapt, spread the ball, and still put up points. And if, hypothetically, things between Hurts and AJ ever reached a breaking point, it's comforting to know the Eagles could survive it. Still, that's not the goal. The goal is to get everyone pulling in the same direction again, because a unified Eagles roster is still one of the most dangerous teams in football. Coming out of the bye, the road won't get easier. The Packers, Cowboys, and 49ers are all looming. Every one of those games could shape the NFC playoff picture. But if this win was any indication, the Eagles are starting to feel like themselves again, confident, balanced, and dangerous. The mistakes that haunted them earlier in the year seem to be fading. The identity crisis is over. They found who they are, a team built on toughness, fueled by depth, and led by a quarterback who's answering every question thrown his way. So as the Birds rest, reload, and get ready for Green Bay, I'll throw it over to you, the fans. Do you think this game marks the turning point in the Eagles' season? Has Philadelphia officially found the formula that can take them back to the top of the NFC? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you're still riding high after that Giants beatdown, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more Eagles coverage, and stick around, more videos are coming your way next. Because here's the thing, moments like this can redefine a season. You could feel it in that stadium, you could feel it in the way players talked afterward, and you could see it in how they played together. That's what separates the good teams from the special ones. The good teams celebrate the win and move on. The special ones recognize when something has shifted, when the chemistry, effort, and belief finally align. That's what we saw against the Giants. For the first time all year, the Eagles weren't just winning, they were dictating. They were imposing their style, forcing New York to adjust, and making it clear that Philadelphia football still runs through toughness and precision. The bye week comes at a perfect time. This team's getting healthier, the morale is high, and for the first time since early in the season, there's a sense of control. The Eagles aren't chasing an identity anymore, they found it. They know who they are, a team that can run through you, pressure your quarterback into bad throws, and trust its leader, Jalen Hurts, to make the right decision every single snap. And while every season has its bumps, from offensive inconsistency to locker room noise, this version of the Eagles feels like one that's come through the fire sharper and stronger. And you can't talk about this stretch without mentioning the city itself. Philadelphia feeds this team, the passion, the noise, the criticism, the love. The players know it, the coaches know it, and you can sense that connection